Talking Water, brought to you by our sponsor, East Gippsland Water. Welcome to Talking Water, a fortnightly segment where we talk all things water and recycled water with our regional authority, East Gippsland Water. Hello and welcome to the program. This month we welcome Managing Director for East Gippsland Water, Steve McKenzie. Hello Steve, and welcome back to the program. It has been a little time since you were last here, so welcome back.
Yeah, thanks Damien. It's good to be here again. And the last time I was here was actually back in December, which has slipped away pretty quickly. And I talked about how we provide financial assistance to customers and the weather outlook for summer.
That's correct. Well, Steve, I believe this will be the last time we'll be talking with you on the program today, as you'll be leaving East Gippsland Water at the end of the month. Would you like to let our listeners know more about that?
Yeah, thanks, Damien. This will be the last time I'm on the program representing East Gippsland Water. After 45 years of serving a community, I'm taking time out to spend with my family, travel, and I've even volunteered for a local organisation, so I'm looking forward to that. I joined the organisation in October 2018, and I told the board last year that it was time to hand over to someone new, and I'm pleased to say that Michael Wandmaker, who was previously the Managing Director of Melbourne Water, will actually be starting with on the 1st of July. So today, I'd just like to reflect back a bit on my time at East Gippsland Water.
Thanks, Steve. I know a lot has happened during your time at East Gippsland Water, so it would be great to learn more about the highs and the lows of your time as the Managing Director.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable 6 years. I'm sure everyone can reflect back now and remember. There have been some real community challenges, and the first one of those when I arrived was the bushfires. And interestingly, when I arrived in late 2018, there were actually a couple of fires burning up in the Alps, which is a fairly normal in a normal year, and everyone said, oh look, that is normal, don't worry about it. Well, within 12 months we had fires burning all the way from Omeo to Malakuta along a 300 kilometre front, and those fires burnt 50% of East Gippsland and destroyed some of our infrastructure as well as a lot of other stuff. But the really pleasing thing is we were able to maintain water and sewage services generally without interruption, and only about 2% of our customers actually experienced an interruption during that period, which I thought was pretty remarkable. One of the stories I remember from the time was one of our Malakuta staff, Hans van der Sant, and I don't mind mentioning his name, hopefully he's listening, because I'd like to acknowledge him. You know, he was visiting family in Geelong, so this was all happening around that Christmas New Year period. And when the fire hit and he heard about it, he decided he needed to get back. And he started driving back from Geelong, but of course all the roads were blocked and he's zigzagging backwards and forwards, ended up going back via Canberra, then to Eden, and talked himself onto a boat. He wasn't meant to be there, and convinced them, and he got on the boat and got off at Malakuta within 24 hours to help the community and help his friends. You know, so the dedication of our staff and the support from customers during that time was fantastic, and I can't thank everyone.
Thanks, Steve. It was definitely an unprecedented time for everyone. I think also around this time, East Gippsland Water introduced water restrictions. Is that right?
So, as the fires were happening, we were already planning on implementing water restrictions. So we implemented them in January 2020. And that applied in the Mitchell River system, which applies to Bairnsdale right through to now, which is about 80% of our customers would have been affected. And we literally only had a few months' worth of water left, and still being December, January, we still had a long way to go. So we're even preparing to introduce tougher restrictions, but surprisingly, the rain came and we were able to remove those water restrictions in July 2020. Unfortunately, the rain washed all the ash and bushfire debris into the rivers, and we then had a 4-month dirty water event. So even though the fires had ended, our staff were still going flat out around the clock to keep the water supply safe. And we also had an amazing support from other Victorian water businesses. And another story I can think of at the time was going up to the Orbost water treatment plant and meeting operators who'd come across to help us from the Goulburn Valley Water in Shepparton. And we were having to run our systems and have our staff pretty much sleep on site 24 hours a day to keep things going, and that was going on for weeks and months. So we needed help, and so we had operators coming across from the Goulburn Valley, and they were sleeping at the plant, and that was to give our guys a break. So it really was an amazing period of time, and we got through it. But just as we thought we were getting on top of it, COVID hit.
You're definitely right there, Steve. No one was prepared for the COVID-19, and it seems like a bit of a strange nightmare that happened and has come and gone. So as an essential service provider, how do you navigate through it? How do you deal with these situations?
Well, our priority was to ensure that safe and reliable water and sewage services were maintained to all of our customers. So even though our staff were affected by the fires and COVID like everybody else, they just had to turn up and keep water flowing and the toilets flushing. So during COVID, our operations never stopped. We're a 24-hour-a-day business every day of the year. We had to follow all of the health department advice on strict hygiene and social distancing, even when we were going into people's backyards to, help them with plumbing problems. So our field staff just didn't stop and they had to keep going, and they were remarkable. In the office, of course, we were getting dictated to by what was going on at government level and by the health department, and we were often told to shut the office and go home. We don't really have that luxury when you're in a business 24 hours a day, but our staff, we followed the rules, and quite often our staff in the office had to go home and work. But that didn't mean they stopped working. No. They were working. And if a customer rang up in that time, there was a really good chance they were talking to a staff member who was working from the bedroom or in the kitchen. And our staff kept doing what needed to keep going. Thankfully, COVID did ease, and I'm proud to say we were the first water corporation in Victoria to reopen our doors for customers.
It certainly does seem like a distant memory, Steve. Now, previously you mentioned rainfall, and we're going to get back to that. What would you like to discuss about that now?
As I mentioned, the rain caused dirty water problems, and it was challenging to ensure that the water that was coming out of people's taps was always safe to drink. But at least we had water, and we were able to reduce or eliminate those water restrictions. Unfortunately, the rain didn't stop, and we had almost 2 years of what I call a slow drowning event. So, there's a bit of coverage of other parts of Victoria which had flash floods. We didn't have that. We just had steady rain for about a 2-year period. And in that period, we actually had the wettest year on record. So we moved from the driest conditions on record to the wettest conditions on record within about 2 years. Now, you might think as a water supply business, we love it when it rains. But we also collect everyone's sewage, and we have to recycle that and treat it and recycle it by irrigating it on farmland. So we actually own quite a bit of land. And the non-stop rain meant East Gippsland was saturated, and that included our own recycling farms, and we couldn't irrigate. So unfortunately, because we couldn't stop flows coming in, several times as an absolute last resort, we had to actually release treated recycled water to nearby creeks. Now, this was necessary to protect the environment and protect public safety, because the alternative would have been uncontrolled overflows of partially treated sewage into the environment, or even a collapse of some of our farm dams. So our priority going forward now is to expand our recycled water farms to ensure they're ready for future floods.
Thank you, Steve. And as you've explained, there has been plenty of challenges during your time at East Gippsland Water. What have been some of the positive things that have stuck in your mind?
Yeah, thanks, Damien, again. There were plenty of good highlights, even though it's been challenging. So following the drought, we've made some great improvements already to our drinking water supply and improve water security and reliability. We've actually developed a 50-year water strategy to address the impacts of climate change. So we can map out sort of key milestones coming up where we need to be ready to have expanded our water supply or improved treatment or whatever. So next year we'll actually commence building a third water storage at Woodglen, which supplies about 80% of our customers. Now, that's a $40 million project and our biggest ever investment in water supply security. People may have noticed locally, we actually built a new $36 million water storage at Wyong a couple of years ago. And today, if you drive past, even today, as you're listening to me talk, drive past Wyong, you'll see contractors replacing the liner and cover on the other 68 million litre water storage that sits up there. As well as preparing for drought, we're also preparing for floods. And this year we'll upgrade some of our recycling facilities at Paynesville, Bairnsdale, Lakes Entrance and Meetung. Another big highlight is our work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think the theme I'll make here today is, climate change is real and it's here. We've seen the evidence of it in terms of the dry and the wet, so we need to be ready. And part of that is we need to be responsible and manage our own greenhouse gas emissions. So we've installed solar arrays on our own land, and we're actually using gas from our sewage treatment process to generate electricity in Bairnsdale. One little story I'd like to highlight was in Mallacoota. We actually buy our renewable energy from the Mallacoota Sustainable Energy Group. We have some land. They got their own investment and they built some solar panels on it, and we agreed we'd buy our energy from them, and they make a little bit of profit and then they can put it back into other environmental projects. And I think that's just a fantastic story. We're also one of 12 Victorian water businesses that purchase renewable energy from a solar farm in northwest Victoria. And as of July this year, so next month, we'll be using 100% renewable energy. As I said, the extreme weather is clearly showing how climate change is affecting all of us, and we need to adapt. I'm extremely grateful to have worked with the board to influence East Gippsland Water's future and embark on our biggest capital investment program. In the next 5 years, we'll invest $130 million to protect the environment and prepare for climate change. I'm really pleased we've expanded our programs to help people in need. And one example, we've assisted the Bairnsdale Neighbourhood House. We reviewed their water usage and implemented a rebate that basically eliminates their bill. Now, for those who don't know, Bairnsdale Neighbourhood House is just one example of a great community effort, and their volunteers do an absolutely amazing job supporting people in need, such as providing help for the homeless with washing and cooking, and I'm delighted to support them.
Steve, thank you. There's some very great highlights, and I'm sure that there are many more you could mention. However, this is the end of the program, so is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, my lasting memory of East Gippsland Water is the dedication and passion of our people. As I've given you a few examples already, they just keep things going no matter what, and I think sometimes turning up is underrated. But it has to happen, and we run our business and provide support for the community 24 hours a day. I'm really humbled and proud of our people, and as part of our community, our staff are your friends, your neighbours, and they were affected like everybody else by the fires, floods and COVID. They turn up every day to keep services going. I'd like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to all of the East Gippsland Water staff for their dedication and commitment through the roller coaster of the last few years. I'd also like to thank you, Damien, and the REG FM staff and listeners for having me and other East Gippsland Water staff on the program over the last year or so. And I hope that we've been able to convey a little bit more about what the organisation does and who we are.
Steve, thank you so much. On behalf of REG FM, we would like to wish you all the very best for your future, and thanks for those very kind words. I'd like to pass my sincere thanks for you to come into the program today and to wish you all the very best for your future.